MSNBC's Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski are very upset with Joe Biden's staff for letting him appear old. They're not upset with Biden for being this old and continuing to run and be trying to run for re-election and run the country, put himself in a very stressful job. They are upset with the staff for not helping hide how freaking old that he is. Here's what she had to say.
They also managed his schedule very carefully.
Yeah, I think his staff needs to own his age. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think they do a good job helping out the president. And I'm not talking about it like, I'm just saying if you are managing a president's schedule and you are managing a president getting on stage and getting off stage and getting on planes and getting off planes, and yes, he's 80. You need to be there for him and you need to make a pathway. And you sure as hell better make sure he doesn't fall on a sandbag. And I blame the staff for that. I mean, these are the things that are going to hurt him. These are things that are going to be played on a loop. Okay? Let him do his job. Let him do his speeches. Let him work on policy. Let him do his connections in Congress, unlike any president that we've seen. I don't know, since Clinton. But my God, make sure, your Secret Service, you're his staff, that you were there and you're telling him what's next. And it's not because, don't take this as, oh, he can't even get from one place to another. When you're busy and you're on stage, and we've been on stage, right. I've done speeches and I'm so nervous. I'm doing the speech. I'm trying to get it right. And when it's done, I don't know which way to go. And I'm looking for direction. So do a better job. Because you can't have these video images of the president tripping or the president going the wrong way. It's not going to work in this presidency because his age is going to be a factor. His age is going to be a factor, and it's your job to make sure he gets from one place to another. He can handle the presidency. You have to handle his schedule and where he goes.
You've got to handle his schedule and where he goes. I would posit that we've had several presidents. Many of them faced the exact same circumstance, and they didn't wander off in weird directions whenever they did so, because they're not old. I mean, it's very basic about what the issue is. And effectively what they're saying is you got to cover up his age more. You got to basically come in. I mean, it's so patronizing, too. It's like he's a grown man. If he really does require someone to come and grab his arm the moment that he's done and point him in the right direction, he should not be in the position. So, you really can't, look, autonomous adults, people deal with these stressful things all the time. We can all acknowledge that it is stressful and part of the presidency, but no president in modern history has been as old as Joe Biden. And if that's what he requires to serve in the job, then he shouldn't be in the job, period.
They want him to get the Dianne Feinstein treatment.
Yeah, just true.
I mean,
good point.
Where it's like, staffers constantly surround her. She never gets asked a question without a staffer there to feed her what the answer is. They shepherd her through the hallways. They do everything they can and have for years to make sure that people don't know just how far her mental decline has gone. And apparently, that's the sort of system that they feel needs to be in place for the president of the United States.
Awful.
I mean, listen, the other piece of this, too, is Mika is really going off here. She's really in her feelings about this one. And it's like, with all the issues that exist in the world, the fact that you don't feel the president's aides have, lied to the American public enough about how the president is actually doing, that's the thing you're going to get on your righteous high horse about? It's just amazing. And you know what? The other thing is that there's a lot of signs that his aides have really been trying to aggressively stage manage him. There were pictures of they were always giving him these note cards with really clear bullets to really hammer home, this is the thing that we need you to say, and this is the person that's in the room, or whatever. But they can't control if he goes off script and says, "Where's Jackie?" when Jackie died in a car accident a month ago. How are you possibly going to protect against that? And we also have the example of the fact that, he barely does interviews. He's not going to debate. Very few public appearances, very few press conferences. So they're clearly doing everything they can to try to hide his very apparent aging from the American public, but still not enough for Mika and Joe.
The big problem that they are getting to, with all this, like you just said, is that the age is a factor which is so visceral for all of us, and they want it to be covered up. And I find that just so disgusting. And, she could spend more time being like, hey, listen, Mr. President, you're an old man, and it's time to go sometimes, and that's okay. Her own father recently, I think he just died very recently lived up into his 90s. Like, and he was a great man, quote unquote, I guess in his time. He's a national security advisor to Jimmy Carter, a great statesman and all of this. But, there is just an inevitable decline that happens with this. And, let's go and put this next part up on the screen, which really hammers this stuff home. Like, Biden skipped the NATO dinner with all of the leaders, citing workload. And you're like, okay. It turns out, let's put this next part. This is the third major dinner that he has now skipped with world leaders on an international trip. The last time, quote, still after fatiguing days on the road, he skipped dinner with world leaders in Indonesia and again in Japan in May. Now, let me just offer some sympathy. I just returned from Asia. I get it. The jet lag is a pain in the ass. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I checked. Vilnius is 7 hours ahead, okay? It ain't that bad. It's not terrible enough for you've already been on the continent, one day. You can stomach a single dinner, especially whenever you so rarely get to actually meet and commiserate with some of these people. From what I have heard, many of these are a chore, these diplomatic events and all that. Don't be the head of state then. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't like to be feted and attend some of this stuff, then you probably shouldn't run for president. It would drive me crazy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, that's not what I do.
But, Joe Biden used to live for this stuff.
That's the other part.
He's not like us in that we were like, I don't want anything to do with this. Like, I'm not interested in your bullshit table conversation. He's not like that. He's a old school, glad-handing politician. Very really prizes those personal relationships. Kind of sort of Trumpy in this regard. Like really views foreign policy through the lens of his personal relationships with various world leaders. So yeah, when he decides in multiple trips that he's going to skip out on those dinners, it's indicative. And it's a rough schedule. No one is saying that being president of the United States is a cup of tea. It's brutal, it's stressful, it's exhausting, it's long days, it's late nights, it's early mornings, it's all of those things. And, ideally you would have someone in the job who was ready and able and willing and up to that task. But, just to bring it back to Mika, I just can't get over someone who is supposedly, I guess, sort of a journalist. You're actually arguing here for less transparency for the American people. What you're arguing for is you need to do a better job hiding the reality of what's going on in the White House. I mean, the real thing you should be asking for is, hey, Mr. President, people have questions about your age and your ability to do the job. You should debate your primary opponent so people can see in real time that you're up to it, that you've got a vision for the future, that you're able to articulate, that you've got the energy to take on these other competitors. Like, get out there and show us. What she should be advocating for is, hey, we need to have more availability. We need to see you out there in press conferences. We need to see you doing interviews. We sure as hell need to see you, being able to attend these dinners that are with other heads of state. That's what you should be arguing for if any of your rhetoric about democracy means a single thing. But of course we know that it doesn't. It's all just partisan flacking. And in that regard, if you're just a Democratic partisan cheerleader, you're not wrong that maybe the staff should up their game in further trying to hide from the American people the actual condition of the president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, this is all they can really stomach. If he can't handle the very basics of the presidency, going abroad and holding a meeting and being able to be sound of mind, well, then he shouldn't be in that. And it's not a staff problem. It is a personal problem. It is a very legitimate question, and it's one that we've been probably the most gaslit on from the very beginning, really, of his entire candidacy, from the fake stutter that suddenly rematerialized 80 years later, to any accusations of ageism or sexism whenever it came to Dianne Feinstein. They'll use anything in their playbook to get people to shut up about
it's anti-Irish bias
with, that's right,
with Joe Biden. I haven't actually heard them say that, but it would be amazing
I mean, I'm sure they would say it. Actually sounds like something he would say. It really does.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.